Hey everybody, welcome back to Ogre Speed Shop. On this really quick video, I'm just going to show you how I made a mock-up shock so I can set up the exhaust and the what I'm going to need for the length for my coilovers for the rear suspension of the Firebird. So stick around, stand by, and enjoy the video. Okay, so I started out by just making that. I cut a piece of 1 1/4 tubing off, and I'll show you that here in a minute. And I used a couple washers, 5/8 washers, because that's the size of the diameter of the shock mount. So used some washers and basically made a little eyelet to, mock up the mounts for the shocks. Well, I can't talk today. I don't know what that's going on. So basically, the first thing I used was this pipe right here. That's also what I used for the length of it. And I cut it to about 13 inches. That way I can adjust the top of it accordingly when I need to move it for the exhaust. So I just cut, basically a piece off of this for each one of the shocks. I've already got one made, and I made this, I believe it's 1 inch. So I cut a 1 inch piece and then welded these on, these 5/8 fat washers, to make an eyelet. So that's how I got that. So as far as the quote unquote coil spring version or portion of this, I have this 3.5 inch piece of pipe because I talked to a buddy of mine who owns a shop, but I couldn't remember the diameter of most coil springs, and he says they're about 3.5 inches. So found that, and it's actually a piece of pipe I found behind my shop, left over from the previous owners, who is a driller. So this is actually part of a drill bit, basically. It's one of the pieces they screw together to drill. So it was perfect, 3.5 inches. There's a duck. All right, so the next thing I did in order to set this up in the center of my 3.5 inches, I took a piece of 3x1, and I think it's just 90 wall, and hole sawed it with an 1.25 inch drill bit, or 1.25 inch hole saw, because that's what the diameter of this is. And that way I can center it with these plates. It doesn't have to hold strength, it just needs to hold this in place, because all the weight's going to be on this if I ever actually attach this to the car, just to set it on the ground for whatever reason, that ride height, because it's at ride height right now. That's what we're setting up. So that's all I did for that. So that's the pieces for that, and I'll be welding that into there and centering it, and I'll show you how I center it here in a minute. Okay, so the way I center these, I'll go ahead and stick this, raise it up. If you look right there, and if the duck would just shut up for a second. I raised it up so it's about a little bit less than 4 inches. Just a little bit less than 4 inches to come in here. And I'm just judging it off of a picture on the Viking website, the Viking Shock website, and just guesstimated about where it's going to be. So did that, and I take these magnets here. All right, so what I do with these magnets is I take the round end, I stick it down inside there and hold on to it that way. And I do it on 2 sides of it, 90 degrees out from each other, just to hold it center somewhat. And then take my measurement, and it should be about just a little less than 1 1/8 inches. So I take a measurement out to the outside edge, is what it's supposed to be. And it's just a little bit less than that. It's a little too far that way, so I just kind of tap it into place, and that moves those magnets up a little bit. So now we're just under 1 1/8 inches. Just under 1 1/8 inches. And just under 1 1/8 inches. So it's pretty much centered now. So then I take the plate that I made, that I cut the 1.25 inch hole into, and I stick one of those on there. And weld it into place. All right, so that takes care of that portion of it. All right, for this side, I just kind of turned it back over, took measurements again, because it's welded to the bottom, and it's actually gonna be the top, but either way, It's just under 1 1/8 on it the whole way around. So now I can go ahead and weld these plates on there to keep it centered. So basically just rinse and repeat of the other side. So the last thing I'm going to do is just going to grind these edges down so they're round to match the rest of it. I may put some weld on there too, but it's really not that necessary. Like I said, all the weight's going to be on the centerpiece, which is solid. So that's just to give me a dimension for my spring. All right, so there you have it. Now those plates are rounded off. Could probably use a little weld right about there, but I ain't too worried about it. So now we got both sides rounded off. Now it becomes a shock coilover. And if you come over to the car, I've already got one up in there. All right, so now I get the light working and the glare's gone. You can see how it works. So that's where the shock's going to be going. That's where the coilover's at, where it's mounted. I'm going to try to bring the exhaust through this area here and out to the side so it can exit right about here. Kind of like, you know, most Firebirds, they have the side little kick down right here. It comes down right here. So that's my goal. We'll see when we get the pipe in tomorrow. The brake line, I'm going to be changing that out to a 90. So that's going to be out of the way as well. One of the things I have to worry about over here is the vent. It might be in the way, but hopefully it won't be. If you can see it somewhere up in there, right there. So I don't think it'll be a problem if I run it out on the outside, but trying to minimize the angle of the shock, because the straighter up and down it is, the better it's going to work. So, but you can go out to a pretty, you know, intense angle as well, but I'd rather keep it as close to straight up and down as I can. So that's what the shocks are for, or the mock-up shocks are for. All right, so now you know why I'm making these mock-up shocks. It's coilovers. Yeah, it's kind of rudimentary, but it's it'll get done the job I need to be done. Because right now I'm on a budget here, so I can afford the piping for the exhaust. So I can get that much done, but the shocks are the most expensive part of this project, and which is why I haven't got them yet. So yeah, that's how I made the mock-up coilovers for the Firebird, so I can fit exhaust and figure out the length of shock I need when I go to order them from Viking. So like I said, it's going to be a real quick video on making a mock-up coilover shock for the Firebird. So if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like, leave a comment down there with any suggestions or comments or anything you want to say, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. So until next time, I'll see y'all later.